This episode of NSC TV is brought to you by Auto Scratch, Bushranger Brotherhood, Geelong Firearm Courses, Hunters and Shooters Society of Australia, Kilsyth Outdoor Store, and Shooters Union Australia. And welcome to NSC TV in our new format. If you'd like to comment on the format, then drop us a line at admin@nationalshooting.org.au and we'll take all feedback into account. So thanks for joining the show, and also thank you again to our sponsors and our supporters at NSC TV. To become a member, go to nsctv.com.au. Tonight we bring you three stories. The first will be an update on the result from the recent federal election and what it means for shooters. The second will be an update on a reclassification win in South Australia, and we'll be catching up with Ron Sterry. Ron is our Northern Territory hero who beat Northern Territory Police on gun charges, only to have them raid his place when he was interstate. So stay with us and we'll bring those to you. So I've got Peter Zabradak, Vice President of the NSC, with me to run through the results of the 2022 federal election and what it means for shooters. So, hi Peter, welcome.
G'day Neil, how are you going? G'day listeners.
Good. So the election seems to have been run on one. What's your take on it?
It's probably been a bit of a game changer in terms of the results that it has produced. Yes, Labor has won, but their win isn't, when you drill down beneath the surface, isn't everything that they're claiming that it would be. Labor only basically picked up 32% of the primary vote across Australia, which is way down. And when you drill down even further, you actually get some state-by-state results, which means things are not as good as what Labor have painted them out to be. There's been a rise in a swing against both of the major parties, as we all know, and it's been a very interesting election. Having said that, Labor has won, and my prediction is that there will be some even tougher times coming for shooters in the next 3 years at both state and federal. The key will be the results of the Victorian election later this year. Now, it's actually interesting when you look at the swing to the Labor Party. Victoria was less than 1%, actually 0.9%. So it was the lowest pro-Labor swing in all of the states. Now, some of the others, WA 10.8, they love McGowan over there. South Australia 3.7, NT 1.3, Queensland 5.5, New South Wales 2.9, the ACT was 4.85, and Tasmania was 2.1. So what it's going to mean basically is the litmus test will come in November at the Victorian state election. The worst nightmare scenario for shooters will be a federal Labor government in Canberra and a Labor government in Victoria re-elected. We know basically what will happen. There'll be hunting bans, duck hunting bans, quite possibly even public land hunting bans on the cards in Victoria if the Andrews government is returned in November.
Okay, so with the feds, their jurisdiction really is just coordinating the National Firearms Agreement and their control of firearms at the border. So what else could they do you think, either within that or outside that, to put pressure on shooters?
I think there will be a push from federal Labor on all of the Labor states for everybody to tighten up their firearms laws in particular. WA have already announced their intent to rewrite their entire Firearms Act. I can see a push coming from federal Labor to all of the Labor states for exactly the same thing to happen. So whilst firearms are a state matter, ultimately the feds have got say on what is allowed to be imported into and sold in the country. But then the states, as we've seen on a regular basis, go even further and bring in their own restrictions. But as I said, Labor state government, Labor federal government, bad news for shooters.
Who would be the main players in the federal Labor space when it comes to firearms? Are we talking here about the Home Affairs Minister and Justice? Is that
absolutely.
Portfolios?
Yep. Whilst the portfolios haven't been allocated as yet, previously Jason Clare held the portfolio for Home Affairs. Likely to get it again, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, speaking of Jason, I looked at, now he's a member for Blaxland, which is Keating's old seat. I've got an old article for when he was, I think, yes, when he was Home Affairs Minister, which I'll just pop up on the screen now, because what it shows is his, basically his attitude. So if you look at, this article was in the Daily Telegraph, and it was about the black market for firearms. And you can see here in the second paragraph that Mr. Clare was saying that only 3 of 237 handguns confiscated by police originated from overseas. The implication, obviously, being that stolen from the local market. In fact, that's what he said here. It reveals there are tens of thousands of illegal firearms on the streets, and most of them are stolen, not illegally imported. That's his view. In the next paragraph, you've got one of the former New South Wales police ministers, Michael Gallagher, actually saying, or Gallagher, I think, saying the opposite, saying the state had uncovered hundreds of illegally imported gun parts and guns in this year alone. So you've got a clear contradiction between the state and federal government on that issue. But if Clare takes on the portfolio, either the Home Affairs or Justice, with that sort of attitude, then it's not hard to see what he would be pushing for.
Absolutely, and as I said, the worst case scenario for any licensed firearm owner is a federal Labor government and a state Labor government, because they will be working cap in hand, side by side together, to make life harder for shooters in terms of what we can own, what we can store, what we can import, what we can sell, the storage requirements. The federal police today, funnily enough, were making loud noises again about a national firearms registry. And a crackdown. And that idea, from my time in Labor circles as a Labor staffer in Canberra, actually has a lot of popularity, believe it or not, within the ALP. So I can see a push coming for that.
There was a review done in the mid-2000s along similar lines. The Nous Consulting Group had been hired by the feds to look at a national... I've actually got a presentation on my computer here, which I can find, but to actually look at yes, having a national firearms registry, but it fell over for two main reasons. One was the fact that a lot of the registries have bad data already and inconsistent data. So if you start pulling in all the bad data, you're just creating one really big bad database. And the other was cost. I think the estimate back then was, this is 20 odd years ago nearly, was $100 million. And you can bet your bottom dollar who would be asked to pay for that through the...
Oh, absolutely. The cost will be passed on to our shooters. It's interesting that you raised that point. As you're probably aware, Tim Quilty down here in Victoria has been asking lots of questions about the Victorian firearms database in particular, and he's been getting some answers from government. We know that VicPol have actually admitted publicly that there's about 100,000 missing guns, shall we say, within their database. Now, their response is, that goes back to the old firearms database pre-96, and we've been working towards cleaning that up. And I believe the figure they've quoted in response to Tim's persistent questioning is they're up to about 60,000. So at this point in time, we've got something like 40,000 at least firearms unaccounted for in the state of Victoria. Now, having said that, that's not taking into consideration errors in the firearms database since 1996, and they're numerous. I know firsthand from personal experience, 2 consecutive serial numbered pistols. Anyone that owns firearms knows what that means. Consecutive numbered handguns in terms of serial numbers, both showing on the VicPol firearms database with different calibers, different barrel lengths, and different magazine capacities. Yet they're consecutive serial numbered pistols from the same manufacturer. That's how poor the Victorian firearms database actually is. Now, I was told by police sources that somewhere between 70 to 80% of the Victorian firearms database is incorrect.
Okay. You were on 3AW this morning, just to clarify that Roland Brown from Gun Control Australia thinks that handguns should be limited to how many rounds?
Roland made the point yesterday in his interview that in his opinion, handguns should be single shot only. absolutely absurd, completely unworkable, as I said to Neil Mitchell this morning. Olympic pistol shooting events require multiple shots. I'm an IPSC shooter. Again, we're restricted civilian to 10-round magazines in semi-autos, and most revolvers are 6-round capacity. So the whole concept of single-shot pistols, we're talking air pistols. It's just totally unworkable.
Right.
Roland Brown just doesn't know what he's talking about, full stop.
Okay, so we've got the next election coming up will be the Victorian state election. So that's one which I know the NSC is going to be very active in.
Look, it sounds like a long way away, 6 months. It's not. Knowing from my days in politics, the amount of work that goes into an election, running an election, preparing for an election, making an impact in the run-up to an election, we need to really, really start preparing now, and shooters need to be conscious of the fact that a key Victorian election is literally a stone's throw away.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, Peter Zabradak, Vice President NSC, thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, viewers.
So I've got Paul Gels with me. Now, Paul's from South Australia. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Neil.
G'day. So, Paul, you're from Yankalilla, is it?
Yankalilla, yeah. It's a little town on the southern Fleurieu Peninsula on the way to Kangaroo Island.
I used to fish down that way. I think it was Rapid Bay or Victor Harbour. Is that in the same area?
Yeah, Rapid Bay is a little bit further down, and not very far from here, but it's actually part of the same district that we're in, which is the Yankalilla Council District.
Okay, and you're a shooter. You belong to a local club. So what do you shoot?
Yes, I belong to the Myponga Pistol and Shooting Club, and I've been a member there for a few years. I had a little midlife crisis and decided I had extra time on my hands and took up a hobby a few years ago. So this was it.
Excellent. Hey, you shoot local comps?
I do. I do action pistol shooting through it locally, and various other clubs around the state. Competed in state titles and things like that.
So, when you join a club, one of the things which I like to do with new members in particular is actually let them know about the world that's outside the club, because otherwise when they come along and they see the four walls and roof, they think that's it, and don't really understand, or don't almost feel as though they are good enough to go to other competitions, when in fact half of us can't shoot straight anyway, but we go because we really like this lifestyle.
It is a lifestyle thing, and whether you can shoot well or not is largely irrelevant, because it's a learning experience as well. It's a social experience, you do get the hang of whatever you put yourself into, and whatever gun you buy and start using. You'll get the hang of it quickly enough, and you'll be able to at least be semi-competitive with the rest of the people that you're involved with.
Well, half the reason why I'd like to go to competitions is to catch up with people who have known for years.
Oh, we'll our club's open 2 days a week, and we'll gather and we'll shoot this and that and the other, and then we'll sit down. We might have lunch or discuss things over a beer after the shooting and all that sort of thing. And it's a very social environment. Everyone's welcome.
Okay, and you're a man of other talents as well. You play the guitar.
I do. I've been playing guitar since I was about 10. So now I'm 55. I've been playing in bands since high school days. I currently play in one band called Ultimate Distraction. We're on the Adelaide scene as far as that goes, the southern areas, and now we'll go play country shows and get around generally. It's all a fun thing to do.
And the local paper.
And the local paper, yeah. So I am the editor of the Yankalilla Regional News, which is a monthly magazine-style publication. Here's one just for shits and giggles. So that's a recent copy. It's a A4 size magazine full of advertising and local events and news, and it's very local dominated. So 5,000 odd copies a month.
And thank you for the free plug you gave us too. Okay. All right. So tonight's topic is about the Ruger PC Charger that we helped you sort of finally get the PTA for it. So you haven't quite got the gun yet, but
No, I'm still waiting for stock to arrive. It's a long process. Even after you get the approval, it's like, oh, where is it? Okay, it's somewhere in Brisbane, maybe. I did actually speak to my gun shop yesterday, and he said it was well on the way. He's got the invoice, and so it's a happening thing.
Okay, so for those not familiar with the gun, this is the Ruger PC Charger. Can you just quickly tell us what it is? It's a 9mm, is it?
It's a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, as far as that goes, as far as what the it's categorised as. So it would be used basically in a club situation for target shooting for certain matches.
What's the attraction to it? Is it the capacity? Is it why this gun?
Well, it'll be a different sort of handgun. It's very similar to a Ruger PC Charger in 22 LR. So they have a bipod, and you're sitting on you do matches on a bipod sitting position at a 50-yard range, and it's a design. It's really quite good for that sort of competition. It's not one you would normally use for your action gun, but it's possible, I suppose. But it's not designed for an action situation, but it's designed for a set target situation in a timed match.
Okay. So you put in for a PTA, and I've got it here. Now, I'm going to just show part of it, because obviously we don't want to address other details there, but here is when you put in for the PTA. This is what came back. So you can see here they've refused it, and it says application refused due to potential category change. Now, did you at any time speak with SA Police about this?
I did speak to. I tried to speak to them, but that was basically the end result of trying to get the PTA happening.
Because the thing that strikes me is that this is about a potential category change. It's not about an actual category change. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they haven't actually reclassified the gun in South Australia. I don't think they've got the same rules as other states. Is that correct?
No. WA started off the process when they tried to stop them, and then we know what happened there. So South Australia was at the same junction of, they were intending to sort of probably go down that path. So in the end, we stopped them from doing that.
As and others will be aware, we ran a couple of cases in WA. We won them on the Ruger PC Charger, albeit with some modification required to the gun. We're not entirely happy that the gun had to be modified to suit the police, but it was a win, which we'll take. There actually was no legal impediment to the police issuing you a permit, but they refused it anyway.
Yes, it was just in case they could get it across the line. I think that was.
Yeah. So we had this problem, and then filed at the SICAT, the Civil Admin Tribunal in South Australia, which is equivalent to MCAT, VCAT, and pretty much all the other the WASAT, which is all at a level below magistrates' court, but they resolve a whole of administrative type disputes, which can be anything from planning to government decisions, which is what's happened here. Yeah. So at the same time, there was another case that had been filed, one filed earlier on the same gun.
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes, that was actually the one before my in the queue of things to happen.
Yeah. So for a while, we were actually just sitting back to see how that case worked out, and it was almost going to work out, but the applicant, as far as I am aware, and I think it's still the case, had not accepted what was going to be a resolution to the case. So basically fell apart, which then reopened the door for your case to proceed, and the police came back with a solution. Can you tell us what the solution was?
Well, the solution, as far as I was concerned, is the rear end of the gun has a pick rail for you could actually attach a stock to it. So they didn't like that idea, and that piece had to be. There we are. There's a little rail right at the back there.
Yeah, this one here.
Yeah.
Look at this one.
Yep. So that little rail had to be removed by a gunsmith.
Yeah,
Now,
to cut that down. And that was the same in Western Australia. So the idea was that you couldn't fit a stock to it because then it would become a semi-automatic long arm. So they wanted to.
Technically would change its category, wouldn't it? Mm.
If you did it. And I think that's the disrespectful thing about the stance the police are taking, is that they're basing a decision on something that you might do, but there's actually no evidence that you're going to do it or no intent to do it.
Well, that's right.
But they decided to require it anyway. And that's why we're a little bit annoyed about the decisions. But if that modification meant that you could get the gun and you could use it for your comps, then it was, I guess, glass half full rather than glass half empty.
Essentially, yes. So that was the compromise, which I agreed to, and consequently the gun's on the way. In other states, they don't have that requirement. WA obviously do, but I mean, you can have these in Queensland, New South Wales, probably Victoria as well, I believe, without modification.
Sure. Okay, so you still haven't quite got the gun in your hand. It's really just a commercial issue now, getting it in and to you, which is good. So you've actually got the permit now?
That, unfortunately, we have to wait for the serial number to match up and do the paperwork. So, yeah, as soon as it gets here, it'll be just an instant thing.
Okay. All right. Well, Paul, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate your time today. And
no problem, Neil.
That's all right. We'd love to have your club on the show.
In the future. We'll have a chat about that, and we'll see what we can come up with.
No worries. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
No worries. Cheers.
Hi, Ron. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. How are you doing today, Neil?
Yeah, fine. Fine, thank you.
Fantastic.
So, Ron, just for anybody who doesn't know, your story is that last year you went to help a neighbour who'd been stabbed, and it was night time and the assailant was still out there in a town that's been described as a stabbing capital of the world. So you took one of your firearms with you. You provided first aid. The person actually survived, thankfully. Police and ambulance rolled up, and to cut a long story short, the police ended up taking your gun off you, and in fact, your guns, plural, off you, and you faced 5 firearm charges, 3 of which were dropped. One was defeated in the Alice Springs local court. 5th one, you got a good behaviour bond on. So we thought that was all over, only to find when you were in Adelaide recently that the police came to your house with a search warrant, gave you a bit of a hard time about where you were. They didn't believe you actually were interstate at the time. And they then exercised a search warrant, seized a number of items, and you at this moment they've still got those items, and I think we're waiting to see what comes next. So that's your story, and hopefully it's fairly accurate.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. We offered them evidence that I was away, and they refused to acknowledge it. So not very polite or professional, unfortunately.
No.
But yeah.
So this is really an update because when we last posted on this, we listed a couple of items that we knew they'd taken that you had observed that actually were missing from the house, and they included some chili oil and vinegar.
Yes.
Well, since then, the chemical analysis has been received, and
Certainly.
it's quite telling. Before we do that, I'm going to show you the search warrant, and which now I've actually had to hide some details here, but this is the search warrant that was exercised on your place, and you'll see here in the middle that the reason for the search was that there is in or on the property a dangerous drug, precursor, or drug manufacturing equipment. So it's fairly specific, and clearly whoever completed this used their professional judgment to determine that there were those items on your property. And as it turned out, there were some other items taken from your house which do not appear to fit the description on the search warrant, and we'll get around to that in a minute. But what did the chemical analysis come back at? So I'll just show that. And here it is. So I'd like you to take us through this if you can. What we have here is a table which lists the exhibit numbers, obviously the weight, and the result of the analysis. So exhibit number 2, can you tell us, using your judgment as a person who has a strong interest in chemistry, can you take us through this list, please?
Alrighty. So item number 2, I suppose, 002. As you can see, no scheduled drugs, no shock there. If the police had took even a single moment to look at my bank account, they would have known that I'm certainly not a meth cook. But it's just aqueous hydrochloric acid. So anyone familiar, used to remove calcium scale from showers, etc. Very useful chemical in every way. Buy it at Bunnings. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it.
Yeah. Number 3.
Number 3.
Plain old H2O.
It's water. We all know what water is. Now, to be fair, Neil, I know you're in Victoria. It's a cooler climate there. But here in Alice Springs, it's a desert area. So, you can, whenever water's available, you take it.
Well,
my question is, where'd they get it from? The tap?
Well, hang on. No, water can be dangerous. You can crack H2O.
Yeah.
And create those little test tube pops. You can
dihydrogen monoxide.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a fixant. It chokes you out if you're not careful.
All right. Number 4.
Cooking oil.
Cooking oil.
Plain old cooking oil.
Nothing needs to be said other than maybe it would have had a label saying this is canola cooking oil or something like that.
Specifically, vegetable oil, Coles brand. So Coles, if you're interested in sponsorship, if you need a man to sell you cooking oil, hook me up.
Go for it. We'll get Coles on, I think. Okay, can you take me through 5 and 6, please?
All right, so number 5 was mentioned in the article. That was my infamous chili oil.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say, Neil, ever since you've released that article, the top comment I get from people is, can I please have a sample of your chili oil? So it wasn't just the police that were after it. It seems to be half the population of Alice Springs. So
I believe the police had a pretty good party the other day. I'm not sure how they actually managed to do that.
Yeah. Number 6 was that vinegar that was mentioned.
Okay.
Now, I believe in honesty here, and I'm sure you do as well, Neil. Okay. I had in a sample of this vinegar something called sodium acetate. Crystals of sodium acetate. So for people who don't know what sodium acetate is, it's the flavoring to salt and vinegar. So I would like people to comment and say, what would they prefer? Straight cut or crinkle cut chips? Personally, as a gentleman, I prefer crinkle cut.
Okay. And of course, the reason why it's blank is because, as you were telling me before the show, there was no reference points for the lab, so that's why it's blank.
Yep. Correct.
Right. What the next one?
Salicylic acid.
Thank you.
Common chemical. You can buy them at health food stores. You can usually get it at chemists. It is the savior to a lot of anxious teenagers around the world because it's globally used as a face scrub for to treat acne. So
Okay.
if you're having any skin problems, salicylic acid.
Okay. And we've got a few more here. Would you like to just take us through?
Yep. Sulfur powder, plain old sulfur powder. I purified it. The intent for that was to be used to make sulfanilamide, which was one of the first antibiotics ever invented. So that's just one of the chemistry curiosities that I was heading towards.
Yeah. Aspirin, we know about.
Aspirin. You know what aspirin's used for, Neil?
Tell me.
All right. I'll tell you what the aspirin was used for. Everyone ready? The aspirin is used to cure the splitting headache that the NSC has given to the Northern Territory Police, mate.
I don't think they're returning any of these exhibits by the sounds of it. Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't quite end there. You in fact realised when you returned home from Adelaide, where you were at the time, that other things had gone missing, and one of them in particular, I'm afraid to say, clearly caught the attention of Northern Territory Police, and it's an item which they were so worried about that they thought this has to be seized.
Yeah, so John Bertoli, our lawyer, warned me about this. When they do a raid, they're going to look through everything, and naturally, they're always trying to try find something. You know, sometimes it'll be like a small bag of, you know, marijuana or whatever. Try to get people caught out. Yeah. So he did warn me about this. Now, I didn't initially notice these items actually missing when I first got back. John mentioned it, that the firearms squad had actually seized some stuff. Now, of course, we didn't know that because the firearms squad didn't leave a seizure notice. Again, as they are required.
Well, it sounds serious.
Yeah.
I'm
worried I'm going to lose the support of the NSC over this.
I better show them.
So I'm going to be honest with you, Neil.
Okay, here you go.
Ready? Here we go.
All right.
Oh.
Yep.
They seized my Nerf guns, Neil. They got me.
Police seized, and what has the Northern Territory Police Firearms Squad sort of scratching their heads about what to do. Now, I actually did look up where you can buy these things around Darwin, and I actually have it somewhere. I was not going to pull it up now, but yes, it's, if they really, really want to crack down on these things, then they can come to me, and I'll give them the addresses of where to go.
So yeah, look, that's just not any Nerf gun, Neil. That is a Nerf Recon, part of the N-Strike series.
Wow.
So it has a capacity of 6 rounds of non-expanding recreational foam, repeat fire capable, or as every single police commissioner in Australia would say, it is a fully semi-automatic assault machine gun. And I must say, I don't know what it is, but it does have a trigger guard, which is a military feature, as we all know.
Yeah, called by parents' laws.
Yeah, so I mean, don't you feel a bit safer now that you have less Nerf guns out on the street?
Yep. Absolutely.
Feel good that your taxpayer dollars are going to take, rob,
Seizing
rob
water,
grown men of
to
their
seizing water
toys.
and Nerf guns. It sounds like
Yep.
a really good outcome.
Some aspirin.
Okay, so just going forward, you're obviously we're going to wait to see what the Northern Territory Police come back with, and we'll deal with that. In the long term, you've actually applied to enrol in a chemistry degree in Adelaide. So
Yes.
I bet you can't wait to get there.
Oh goodness, I've been wanting to head off since before COVID, but yeah, like a lot of Australians, kind of ruined that. And then when I decided to head off again, we had all this whole issue with the courts. So I'm hoping to get away this time.
Well, the good news is SA Police have deemed Nerf guns to be toys, so they're clear about that.
Oh, so we might be all right.
might
Maybe
be
they
all
should return my property.
Go to the SA Nerf Club gun club. Okay. All right. Well, look, thank you for that, Ron. That's a great.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time today, and wish you the best going forward.
Yeah, thank you
Okay.
very much, Neil. And well, finally, big thank you to you, Peter, and everyone for the NSC, and all those who have supported me. It's been amazing. A bit of a clown show, but it's been good. And finally, I do want to mention, thank you for sticking by me. I did get very nervous that when they raided my house and apparent meth lab, that a lot of people would run in fear, getting associated with drugs. But obviously, you believe in principles, including innocence till guilty. So thank you very much, Neil.
No worries.
May you have yourself a good day.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode of NSC TV. We certainly did. If you have comments, then please send them to admin@nationalshooting.org.au, and we will see you soon. If you like tonight's episode of NSC TV, then don't delay. Get the next episode by signing up at nsctv.com.au.